She was probably the most soft-spoken, inherently kind person. You knew there was nothing to fear from her, nothing at all to fear. You could tell her anything, you could share anything. There was nothing at all ever to. She's not going to gossip. She's not going to do anything unpleasant. She was never even displaying any sort. I mean, she didn't show real affection. She showed concern, but not affection. She wasn't the type of person that puts her hand on your shoulder and says, "I'm sorry, you're not feeling well today," or something. No, she looks at your aura and she sees something out of balance, and then she just repairs it. That's the feeling that she's so advanced that she just has pure humility. She knows what her job is, and she doesn't need to talk. She doesn't need to advertise. She doesn't need to bang a drum or something. It's just the opposite of what you see on the lecture circuit. I didn't regard Morne as my teacher, but rather as a mentor. So she was someone, like I said, I respected her tremendously. I would have done anything reasonable ever to help her. If she had any need, I would have sent over backwards to do anything. But there were times where I would say to her, like, I know you're seeing this from your perspective, but the rational mind doesn't know what to do with it.
On June 28, I had the honor to interview Ingrid Naiman on the phone. She gave some valuable insights into the Morne Simeone that few people know. Ingrid and Morne met in Honolulu in the 1970s. They enjoyed an interesting and important relationship for a number of years. Their relationship continued after Ingrid moved to the mainland. Morne often visited her in Kona, and Ingrid visited Morne on Oahu and later in New Mexico. Ingrid regards Morne as one of her most important mentors in life. She is a medical astrologer, music therapist, herbalist, with a special interest in Ayurvedic medicine. Ingrid has a bachelor's degree from the East-West Center in Asian Studies in 1962, an MA from Yale University in 1964. Hi, Ingrid. Can you tell us how did you meet Morne for the first time?
So what happened was I gave a talk in Honolulu, and it was on some esoteric topic. I don't remember the topic anymore. And she came as an attendee. And that's where she gave me the mailele. So we had never met before. She arrived quite early, and I think we were just sort of maybe alone in the building. And she made a statement at the time that the lei needed to be tied at the bottom, which was not the normal custom. And I was just overwhelmed. I knew immediately she was someone very, very special, but I didn't know anything at all about her. I'd never heard her name. I'd never seen her before. It was just out of the blue. She had a very, very close relationship with her father. I think she hardly ever spoke about her mother, but the first really important incident that I remember her talking about her childhood was that angels were coming to her in her sleep and teaching her healing. And she was outdoors and telling her father what the angels had been teaching her. She was 3 years old at the time, and a truck ran over her dog. And she, of course, the 3-year-old came out, right? She was crying, and then her father said, "You have your first patient. Just do what the angels told you." And the dog recovered completely. And the method that was used, as I understood it, now this is maybe not 100% state fact, but I think it's very close to correct. she would begin by straightening every line in the aura. What's called nadi would be absolutely perpendicular to the body. And then once she had all those lines straight, she would transfer her own energy, mana, or what in, if you're Indian, you would say prana, which would transfer that into the patient, or in this case, the dog. And so the dog recovered 100% perfectly. And so her career began very, very young. And she had a practice at a hotel in Honolulu. It was a long time ago. It was one of the prominent hotels where dignitaries stayed. And she had like presidents and VIPs from all over the world that were coming for the lomi lomi, which is the Hawaiian form of massage.
I think she used to run a house spa at the Kahala Hilton Hotel and the Royal Hawaiian Hotel.
Okay, you're probably correct. Like I said, I wasn't sure. I was the ones that's not in the discount place, right?
Have you ever been to her spa?
No, I met her after that phase of her life. She was a travel agent at the time that I knew her. We went to the concert together with, remember the Symposium on Humanity? So we went to the Honolulu celebration, and Morne was this time, she was sitting on my left. There was a woman on stage, singer, whose profile was to the audience. So her right side was facing the audience. And when she inhaled, there was something that looked like a parachute coming out behind, about 70 feet long. And when she exhaled, the parachute reversed and came to the front of her. And I whispered to Morne, "Is that an aura?" He said, "Yes, but she's only 1/16 Hawaiian." Yeah. And as far as I always understood, Morne was pure Hawaiian. I mean, that's kind of rare because in Hawaii, we call them chop suey, right? A little bit of this and a little bit of that. But she was supposedly pure Hawaiian. And so someone at the retreat had come to me and said, Morne doesn't have an aura. And I said, "Oh, really? I think you're standing inside it." She said, "Look, I'm clairvoyant and I know when I see an aura, and she doesn't have an aura." And I said, "I suggest you go up the mountain and then have a look." She did. And she said, "You're right. Her aura covers practically a quarter of the island." I went to visit her at the agency, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. I remember I was living in Kona. She was living in Honolulu. And so she said, "Which one of your dogs died?" And I said, "Keoki." And I said, "Why do you ask me?" She said, "Well, there's a white dog sitting outside on the sidewalk." And I had seen her work with ghosts before, like on our land in Kona, we had a lot of ghosts, really a lot of ghosts. And she would help move them into other dimensions. And so my first question was, "Is Keoki earthbound?" And she said, "Oh, let me see." And she did her usual thing where she closed her eyes and went into, I don't know, kind of maybe an altered state of consciousness. And then she said, "He says to tell you it's his pleasure to stay with you until the end of time."